scratch and introduce myself. I'm originally from Klamath Falls. And I talk about that a lot because it is part of what has kind of shaped who I am as a person. Being a small town, coming from a small town actually is very, very different than coming from a metro or suburban or rural part, or like otherwise urban part of the state. And for me, it meant that when I was growing up, I saw firsthand the impacts of public policies that were handed down from metro areas or from parts of the state that didn't know what it meant to make a remote area work. And so that meant that our community was less stable, and certainly my family was as well. It taught me the value of hard work. It certainly kind of instilled in me some character that I hold today and that I'm proud of today, to commit to participate in my own community and do everything that I can to make things better. And I went on from living in Klamath Falls. My parents kind of moved across the hill, and I graduated from Eagle Point High School, which is another small town outside of Medford. I put myself through college at George Fox, and then worked briefly at a public relations firm before making the decision to just see what it was all about inside our political life in Salem. And I worked in Salem as a staff person for 8 years. And half of that time I was somebody's chief of staff. The other half of the time I was the equivalent of chief bottle washer. John Kitzhaber was the Democrat in the center office, and Republicans had majority control of both chambers. I happened to have been there during the 5 special sessions and the issues that followed the 9/11 attacks. And the experience of being chief of staff to the Speaker of the House during those very difficult times gave me insight into the upside of divided government. Initially, in John Kitzhaber's term, if you guys will recall, he was not so affectionately referred to as Dr. No for all of his vetoes. And then over time, there was this process where both sides began to understand how to work together and how to compromise and how to negotiate with each other and get some things done. And throughout his tenure, he actually ended up being a very successful governor, working very collaboratively by the end with the Republican legislature. I had a front row seat to the fireworks and to what it took to actually get to yes on both sides. I'm grateful for that experience, but at that time my husband and I by then had gotten married, and our firstborn was about a little under a year old, and he was learning how to walk and crawl in the state capitol more than anywhere else. And I didn't want to live that life with a family, and so I left and I came home to Clackamas County. And I worked for an association, and I led a nonprofit. I got involved in my community. I served on the planning commission. I served in every capacity I could relative to my kids' schools. And again, I committed to do what I could to make things better. So for me, that meant serving as a coach for the Girls on the Run program and serving as a mentor in that capacity. I led the Kid Governor program in our kids' school, leadership councils, whatever I could do to engage and support not just my own kids, but all the kids in our local regionals, in our schools there. And from there, my own state rep made the decision to retire. And folks said, would you ever think about running for office yourself? And while I didn't really think of it as a wood chipper, because it wasn't running for governor at the time, I really did weigh whether or not I wanted to go from being a private person to being a public one. And that's the question. When you enter into elected office, it's a huge jump from being behind the scenes to choosing to say, this is my name, this is what I'm about, this is my story, and this is what I believe. And my family was supportive. It's funny, I talked to everybody in my family. My daughter, her only thing was, will you be home for breakfast? She was 10 years old at the time, and now she's 15, and she's not asking that same question. But I believe in our process. I believe in our civic life. I believe that government in particular can do things to help people. I think government run amok can harm people. That was my experience growing up. That was certainly my parents' perspective on this thing. But that there is a way to balance interests and actually serve the common good. And as I served in the legislature, it was my intent and my commitment to lead in that capacity, to do everything I could to work across the aisle when that was possible, but to hold power to account when it was not. And I went on to run for governor because I recognized that in our state we need two viable parties. The way that we look at our political life right now as if we are a true blue, hard blue only state, it's just not accurate. I've traveled the whole state, and I can tell you that Oregonians want more balance. They want to recognize all the things they have in common. They want people to stop scaring them, to stop dividing them, and to remind them the things that make our state great, and frankly, to remind them that there is a future here that they can be proud of, that they can plan for, and that their kids, in fact, should stay for.